to get this rolling. Our moderator is Nevada Stupak of Stupak Hospitality. Nevada was born and raised in the heart of Las Vegas to legendary casino owners Bob and Sandy Stupak, both World Series of Poker bracelet winners. Vegas greatness is in his blood. As a young prodigy, he would undoubtedly hold the Guinness World Record for the longest time spent in a casino as an underage minor. I'm sure the game control will like that. He's crafted some of the most unforgettable Las Vegas experiences for countless guests. He is the visionary and principal of Stupak, Las Vegas Experience Creators, with lifetime revenue approaching a staggering $100 million. Please give a warm welcome to Nevada Stupak.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Tim and I go back to the teenage years. Both share love for the beloved UNLV basketball team, and I still live through Tim, hearing the stories of being on the road with Anderson Hunt and Moses Curry. Totally excited to be here today. Great group of people. I'd like to invite Steve Hill, president of the Las Vegas Visitor and Convention Authority, up to the stage, please. Volk from CBRE. And Ryan Doherty from Carnival Management. As far as this group here, Steve is essentially the Chief Tourism Officer for Las Vegas. He's promoting the Las Vegas brand in a way that has taken what used to be a city that was not recognizable around the world. And a little story on that. My mother's from Melbourne, Australia. From 4 years old, I've been traveling to Australia to see family and different things. And then when I was in high school, I went to my freshman and sophomore year, studied abroad in Italy. And when I was in these countries, people would ask me where I'm from. And I would say that I'm from Las Vegas. And I was proud of that. My dad owned a casino here. And people would look at me and they would say, "Where is that?" And to see how far we've come to be a globally recognized city and maybe one of the most famous in the world is super exciting. So much gratitude to you and the work that you do. Thank you. I think from Frank's point of view, he was bringing in some of the biggest businesses that would like to grow their business in Vegas, in the retail sector, and signing some of the biggest leases that exist in terms of commercial real estate. So respect to you and what you do. And then Ryan Doherty, someone I go back with a long way, maybe one of the most incredible stories of entrepreneurialism that I've seen. Ryan started as involved in media and was in print, and then had a vision to take on East Fremont with a project called the Commonwealth. He now has 9 projects down there. And I think what's most impressive is that he took businesses, buildings, and brought life into them when many people were not able to do so. He's taken failing businesses and turned them into a revitalization of East Fremont, a place that I could ride my bike to as a kid, and a place I was actually instructed, not to go to. So respect to him and bringing that type of prestige to East Fremont. So thank you for what you do. Steve, if I left anything out that you'd like to mention, please feel free. When I think of your position, I think of it as maybe the most fun position of any position in Las Vegas. You're promoting Las Vegas. You're bringing in businesses to come here. The stadium, we have an NFL football team. We have a racetrack that is now called Las Vegas, right? Amazing thing. So when you go about your daily duties, how do you determine what makes sense to advocate behind? Is there a revenue commitment that you're looking for? Like, what are the criteria that you look in setting up those strategic partnerships?
Well, first, thanks for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. And you're right, I often say I have the best job in Nevada and the easiest product in the world to sell. And I think both of those are true. I really do. You're also right. When you go anywhere, whether they speak our language or not, if you mention Las Vegas, people's eyes light up. I mean, everybody now wants to come here. It's on everybody's bucket list. And there are no other cities in the world like ours. And I say it's the best job in the world. It is when times are great. And over the last couple of months, it's not been quite as good. Things are down a little bit, as everybody knows. And I get a lot of questions around that. I'm happy to address that during our time if you want to. But I also say that at the LVCVA, our job, and really, my opinion, the job of government entities, particularly in Las Vegas, is to create a platform for other people who have great ideas to come here and make it real. What we're going to talk about here a little later is one of those. It's not really our job to decide what the future looks like. Now, if we're going to invest money, then we have to start making those decisions. And that often matters on who the partner is on the other side, just like anybody else who would choose to invest money. It needs to be solid. There need to be guarantees. I've said this about the Raiders deal. I've said it about the A's deal. And I think this applies to any contract you're writing, where the first page of the contract is how the deal is supposed to go, and the other 164 pages are about what happens when the first page doesn't happen the way you thought it was going to. And so you just have to work through those things and know that in any eventuality, the public's protected. It is not harmful if it doesn't work the way you actually think it's going to work. But we've been fortunate. We've had people come to this town, and really, for the most part, and certainly the most of the deals that I have been fortunate to be involved with, those folks have followed through and done what they've said they're going to do. I mean, that applies to the Raiders, applies to Bill Foley, even though it really wasn't public money. It's applied to Formula One, it's applying to the A's. And you need partners like that. You just need folks who will follow through. It took a little while to Falcon Blue, but just Sofer turned around and took it back over and made it happen. So you need the right winners.
In terms of the stakeholders that are involved in what decisions are important to make for Vegas, and take the Raiders Stadium or Allegiant Stadium as an example, and it appeared that Sheldon Adelson had a massive foot behind getting that project off the ground. Who are the stakeholders that sit at the table that you decide, let's really push on this, and how much contribution are you looking for from them?
Well, often, to answer your first question, during the Allegiant Stadium conversation, the expansion of the convention center, Governor Sandoval at the time formed the Southern Nevada Tourism Infrastructure Committee. And it was an 11-person group, 6 representatives from the major resort partners in town. And then at the time, it was Commissioner Sisolak and Mayor Goodman and UNLV President Len Jessup and Kristen McMillan, who was running the chamber, and me. And it was a very good group. We had a lot of public conversation about those 2 projects, and it was very beneficial. Probably couldn't happen any other way in that particular situation. It's been different in most of the others. The hotel partners that we have are almost always in that conversation. Our board is in that conversation, and then whoever the major stakeholders might be are there as well. Often it is more of a responding to a proposal from someone than it is us telling them what we will do. Now, we don't always say just yes to their proposal. We try and discern what makes sense, what's possible from a public funding standpoint. And some of that's financial and some of that's political.
Okay, thank you. And Frank, when you look at market trends in the retail hospitality sector, and the businesses that are coming here, are they expanding? Can you give us a little insight into who wants to come to Vegas, where do they want to open up, and what kind of businesses do they want to operate?
Sure. Like Steve, I think I have the best job in the state of Nevada. Pretty much for that, the reason the question you asked from. This is an inbound market. I deal primarily in resort corridors. So tenants are looking to come here, and they're not really back. And you're getting to work with some of the best, kind of clients and companies on the face of Europe. What we see in the last 36 months has been a lot of entertainment. So like you see like a Universal Studios, you see like a Netflix house coming to Las Vegas. Universal that was their first attraction outside of the Universal Park. So it was a big watershed moment in their company's history. Same thing with Netflix house, same thing. Well, you guys can't hear me, sorry. Same thing for Netflix, big flagship agreement here. We ended up representing those folks, both of those folks. Up until about 12 months ago, luxury was expanding at a really big pace, not just here, but kind of globally. And as things slowed, we've seen most of the luxury tenants kind of pull back in the market, so there's only a handful that are expanding. Cucinelli, Prada, Media, folks like that, Hermes, like LVCVA, they're pretty much out of the market right now. Okay. Pretty much. I'm sure there'll be an outlier here or there, but pretty much. And also F&Bs, like it's been, F&B has been a big part of our practice. F&B, and then it bleeds over in entertainment. Obviously, you have a lot of competitive socializing, social gaming, so things like Flight Club, tenants like that, food and beverage and entertainment. So most of our work, I'd probably say 80% of our work has been in the food and beverage space. On the Strip, and we also do some projects locally, same thing.
Awesome. And then previous to Corner Bar management, you were in media, marketing, really doing a lot of work in the hospitality space. And then you decided to do your first project in 2011. Tell me how you went from that sector, what gave you the idea about East Fremont, and then how did you essentially evolve into multiple venues? Essentially, the East Fremont social corridor is a corridor that you essentially have the biggest footprint in. And can you tell us a little bit about the opportunity and then your transition and now being fully engaged in that area?
Yeah, so early days in 2011, we were still very much in traditional media, billboards, newspapers, magazines. We were also in printing. Tony Shea from Zappos was one of our clients, and he even back then, and a lot of people don't know this, they still printed a catalog. Traditional catalog you mailed out and shut off what sneaker you wanted, they mailed you back the sneaker. These were very early days, and he was just starting to talk about doing this downtown project, which wasn't even named Downtown Project at the time. But he was moving his headquarters from Henderson down to City Hall. He wanted us to come down and look at some spaces down there, and was just trying to get more density and more people interested in the area. We went down and got romanced by this old building and ended up opening up Commonwealth, and that was supposed to be the end of it. And then across the street from us, another building was up for sale, and they were going to sell it to a Steak and Shake. And everybody in the neighborhood was trying to do cool stuff, and we went and begged the landlord to not sell it to Steak and Shake and sell it to us instead. So now we're 2 buildings in. We haven't even opened the first one yet. This was 2013. Life Was Beautiful. I just announced they were going to come down as well. Tony ended up buying the media company, and in that deal, we acquired Life Was Beautiful in 2014. And I had Life Was Beautiful from 2014 to 2019. And every year we would spend millions and millions of dollars to get it right for 3 days, right? Getting everyone downtown for a 3-day event. And you're only as good as your last year. And I remember after 5 years of that, I was thinking, man, we spent $25 million a year to get all the people down here. We could acquire half the block and redevelop it and have a lease for 20 years and not worry about it. You're only as good as your last year in the festival business. So then we got 5 more venues, and as you breathe life into these old venues, you start to breathe life into an entire neighborhood once you have enough of them.
Awesome. So one of the things that I noticed about your venues in particular, and it sounds easy. Hey, there's a density here. There's a lot of tourism. We do a festival. There's all these buildings next to each other. Let's just open a bar, right? But you specifically have a really interesting design concept. It seems like throughout. So was this creative, something that you outsourced? Is this something within? What was the vision behind how intricate and cool your venues actually look?
I think I always want to approach something with thoughtful design. I've traveled around with nothing. I know what I like when I'm in a room, why it feels right, why it sounds right. And we we usually let the building speak to us. So depending on, we get lucky. Vegas is not known for preserving their heritage being floated, but somehow there's a lot of old buildings downtown that we get to play with, and all these bow truss ceilings and things that I normally wouldn't get if you were just getting a place at Area 15 and was driving. So usually we find the space and then decide what the design is going to be like. And I want people to walk in and, my favorite review is someone saying, I can't quite put my finger on why this feels good. You just need to go see it. So we try to also build things that are enhance the neighborhood and aren't a detraction. We want to build places that hopefully become institutions one day. We build neighborhood bars, and we're still waiting for the neighborhood to get built around the area, but we're ahead of it.
Yeah. And then from an economic standpoint, let's just say that you opened your first business and it's successful. Do you take the revenues from that and invest them into more projects, or you do individual raises with different investors for each project? How do you fund these what looks like millions and millions of investment in design and rebuilding into old buildings?
A bit of both. So I usually put the first money in for every deal, so everyone just knows I'm in it. I also have a scalable model being on one street. So we had 7 venues on one street. My top line management was very scalable at that point. I have a director of security for the entire block. I have a VP of ops for the entire block. I have a director of marketing for the entire block, the social media team for the entire block. If these were all individual places, and you had to carry those salaries for all of these spaces, that's where it's unattainable. That's why people fail in the restaurant, and you're trying to keep up with everything going on in your world in individual places with one director of security for one spot. That's where it crumbles. I get to have this scalability because half of them share the wall with each other, just walking from one to the next.
Okay.
I see these guys that have places all around the country or even around town. We had a place at Area 15 at one point, and my managers couldn't believe they drive from downtown to Area 15 because they were so used to just walking around the block and handling business. But if you have a problem at one venue, you can solve it with some personnel from another venue usually. If we run out of whiskey at one venue, we just go next door and get it and bring it over. So the ecosystem works really well for us now.
And Steve, in terms of visitation, and when you look at it from the outside in, we've never had more visitors coming to Vegas. And the stats show that we have a drop off. It seems like I'm not sure if it's over publicized, but it's certainly put out there that visitation is down over 10%, double figures. What does successful visitation look like, to you? And even with these reduced levels, traditionally they're still very high. So what do you do in a time like this?
We've gotten back into the 85% range, so we're 3%-ish off of what it was in 2019. A part of that was a decision by our hotel partners, or resort partners, where they felt it was more important from a customer service standpoint to have a little less occupancy. It was also better financially for them to raise average daily rate. That's worked really well. If you look back at our average daily rates and just scale it from 2019, we are up 32% from that. We were almost exactly the national average in 2019. The national average is up 22% from 2019. So we have increased proportionally our average rate for hotel rooms in Las Vegas in that period of time. I don't know that the ADR is actually what is causing the concern from some customers around pricing. I don't think so, really. But we've taken the opportunity to maximize ADR and not visitation itself. Our visitation year over year is down about 6.5%. You'll see it in June. I don't know if the numbers are actually out yet, but they'll be out if they're not today, tomorrow. Visitation's down 7-ish%. ADR is also down about 7%. And so the combination has RevPAR down, revenue per available room, 14% from June. That is the largest drop that we have seen month over month or year over year for a month this century, other than in a crisis. And frankly, we haven't had just a kind of a downturn in 30 years. Maybe the only person, maybe not, maybe the only person old enough on the stage to remember, when we used to have business cycles. We just haven't had them. We've had dot-com busts, and we've had 9/11, we had great recessions and COVID and recoveries from those things, where we used to just kind of go up and down. We're in a down phase. It is, we are at the LVCVA concentrating on a message of having an offering in Las Vegas for every budget, which we do. You can come here on any budget and have a great time. We are leaning into OTA partnerships with Expedia and Bookings.com, where we intercept folks out there who are searching for travel and flash Las Vegas. It is a very efficient way to generate room nights here in Las Vegas. We generated about 300,000 doing that in June. So we're focused on that message. The top of the market's still doing fine. It's not having difficulties, but folks around the country are concerned about their job, about their financial situation, and it is causing them to hesitate. One of the things that we feel internally at the LVCVA is that it is our job to drive demand to the extent that it exceeds supply. The health of Las Vegas, of the community, of the job market, of the people who live here, I think is partially predicated on the at least healthy growth, doesn't have to be huge growth, but healthy growth of the tourism industry. And we have been flat. It is exceptionally difficult to figure out how to make a major integrated resort pencil right now. It's going to be $2 million a key to be competitive in Las Vegas, and that's just, these interest rates aren't to make sense out of. And when the properties decide, maybe a little bit less occupancy is in their individual best interest, and you don't see other properties stepping up, or we will see that a little bit with Hard Rock, something comes back at the Tropicana site, but they're not built. And so we feel responsible to drive demand to cause construction.
Okay. Are you seeing that the owners or the properties that they're in, are they doing straight leases, or are they doing partnerships where there's revenue share? Like, what is the model that the new businesses are looking for? And is the trend joint venture, or is it, hey, you're on your own, figure it out?
Let's say we're 7% down for the year here in Vegas. Vegas at 93% is better than almost any other market in the country at 100%. The answer to your question is it's all over the board, and it's always been historically. There's kind of, three buckets of real estate on the Strip. Door to the street, kind of, your door opens to the street, and those are all straight leases. You have, the malls, all the major malls, Forum Shops, Fashion Show, Grand Canal Shops, Miracle Mile, etc. Those are all traditional leases as well. Inside the casinos, it's a decently mixed bag, but generally the retail you see in casinos like Via Bellagio and Wynn, those are all pretty much traditional leases. Food and beverage is historically been management licensed, so the hotel would either have a management agreement with the operator or license the concept and operate it themselves. Same for nightclubs. And then there's a little bit of hybrid on that too, so maybe it's a hybrid joint venture where the operator owns 20% or whatever. And then the F&B and in all the other categories, it's all pretty much straight leases.
Okay. Ryan, in what you've learned downtown, where do you see taking what you've learned from downtown, and where's your area for expansion? Where can you go with what you've learned?
I'm fearful outside of Las Vegas, so I'm not looking to get outside of Las Vegas. We feel like we've probably put enough spaces down East Fremont. We just opened up a new space 7 weeks ago called the Doberman. It's in the Arts District, and that is going after a more mature audience. It's a higher priced cocktail. It's a nicer room. It's more low impact. I have mostly DJ-driven dance forward environments down on East Fremont Street, and this is really just a place to go have a cocktail with your mate or have a date. So I think that we would probably expand more in the arts district as opposed to moving to another city or looking at another market.
How much does an event that's brought to Vegas impact your business? So obviously Life is Beautiful was, I would think, massive for the activations, downtown. But when we have these, other events that Steve's out there, getting to come to Vegas, how do you see that impact?
So Life is Beautiful in general was the best amplification of downtown that we ever had. We had businesses downtown, and a lot of people were coming in from out of town who were seeing downtown for the first time. And frankly, even some locals never really went downtown. You said yourself, back in 2011, 2012, it was pretty dodgy down there. And it was always a struggle just to get people to come downtown. We always knew once they got down there, they were like, oh, this is cool down here. I didn't know this all existed. Restaurants, bars, nightclubs. But Life is Beautiful really accelerated everyone coming downtown at one time, and then they would come back, which was really great. We were painting murals and we were putting up things that stayed during the festival. So long after all of the musicians and all the chefs packed up and left, the murals stayed, and people would come back down and visit over and over again. That was a great thing. So that was really good for us. Now, you take the flip side of that, EDC comes to town and we're empty. So everyone's at the racetrack, they're nowhere near downtown. They're coming in sometimes, 6 in the morning and staying in their hotel room, sleeping for a while and going right back to the festival. But then you have an event like, the Sphere has been great, depending on what show it is. They're coming downtown after the show and walking around Main Street or walking around East Fremont Street. So it really depends on the event. We'll see a lot of people come after Raiders games. And we can just tell they were there. Either they were at a watch party or they were at the game because they're all in gear. So we can watch and gauge it by that.
Talked a little bit about the numbers, and when we were on the call, it sounded like your numbers were off 4% year over year. What can you attribute that decline was not as significant as maybe other businesses in the resort corridor?
We got saved by our special events team did such a great job this year. So we had a few Black Swan special events that came in first and second quarter that were really great in changing the entire up to now. But I think we're seeing just as many, the kids, I call them kids, 21 to 27-year-olds. The kids are out in full force. They're just drinking less. So we can see the numbers. The door click is the same, but they're drinking a lot less. They were drinking 2 or 3 or 4 drinks in a night, and now they're drinking 1 or 2 drinks a night. And they're either, a lot of them are price sensitive, so they either don't have as much money to have a full night out, or they're taking an $8 edible and not having a hangover.
F1, even with it, super hyped, came out with pretty expensive prices, ends up being the best week of the year for my business revenue-wise, and we created some amazing experiences for people, and the takeaway was they had the time of their life, once in a lifetime type of experience. And then just a few months to Super Bowl, and that was like the second biggest week in revenue in our company's history, and what we found was nobody was looking, they just wanted to move. When somebody hit our desk, they were like, look, I need these options, I need them now, and they were ready to, execute, which was something that I, hadn't really seen at that level, prior to the Super Bowl specifically. Looking at an event like Canelo and Crawford at Allegiant Stadium, how much influence do you have in that as an LVCVA, as leading it? And then the resort corridor, do we pay for these events? Like, how do we land that and decide not to go to Saudi Arabia?
The first Formula One race and the first Super Bowl in Las Vegas, within 14 weeks of each other, also made a statement to everybody else who puts on events around the globe that, wow, Las Vegas has the ability to do those two things that close together, but no other city can do that. We have a lot of influence on Formula One. We have the contract that we negotiated with them says it has to be on the weekend prior to Thanksgiving, because the weekend prior to Thanksgiving was one of the slowest weekends of the year. And it made sense because of that. If we couldn't have it that weekend, I'm not sure we would have the race within their schedule, because it just wouldn't make any sense. We could do it in the middle of July, fine, but they don't, it just doesn't work for the outdoor race in the middle of July. The Canelo Crawford flight, we're a sponsor, but we had less to do with that, frankly, than the fact that Dana White and TKO are very involved with the South in boxing. And UFC has been a great story for Las Vegas. They are great partners in Las Vegas. And when they were doing this for the first time, they wanted to do it in a place that they know it is going to work. It is, from our standpoint, as we look at what is going to be a slow summer, that weekend is going to be okay, let's recover from the slow summer start. That's a weekend that has the ability to make the month, to make the quarter, because that's going to be just an amazing event. And there's no event in Las Vegas that creates the energy that boxing does. And when you do it at Legion Stadium with 63,000 people in that stadium, it's going to be awesome.
Totally.
And then the Raiders play the Chargers Monday night. And that weekend is going to be just a huge benefit for our city to live back up.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So Frank, what does Vegas not have that we need that you can supply space for?
Nothing. I don't know that there's something out there, in a category that isn't present in Las Vegas already. There's some iterations in category. There's some things that we're working on that are, kind of avatar-based experiences that they're in other parts of the world, but not here. Like, so you're seeing a show and you think it's live, but it's not. We'll see some things like that come. There's some other kind of digital experience things that are hovering around. You'll see some more kind of media companies land. What Universal's doing is not in a vacuum. Other folks in that space are going, if they can do it, we can do it type of thing. So we're on the front end of it. Half of it I'm NDA'd up about, so I can't say anything about it, but there are things that are coming that are not here that'll be interesting for Las Vegas. But it's not like a F1 impact, right? It's gonna round out somebody's experience here, like, hey, I can go do this, but it's not gonna move the needle like things that LVCVA is doing.
Okay. To weigh in on that, I think the stuff that Frank's working on, when people ask me what's next for Las Vegas, if they don't mean just more sports, which I do think is a part of what's next for Las Vegas, it's that experiential stuff. It is going to make the visitor experience for Las Vegas a lot more robust. And, I'm not under NDA with anything that I'm going to mention here. But things, these may come and they may not. I think they probably will at some point. But I don't know if people are familiar with the ABBA experience in London that is, they're not performing on stage. It's a whole series of holograms that sells out 3 shows a night every night of the week in London. Things like that belong here. Sphere is starting to do some of those things. If you look at Cosmo, which is kind of a little mini Sphere for events, I think more opportunities like that will be here. And they see Las Vegas, and we bring 300 some odd thousand customers looking for things to do to them every day. This is the market that they're going to want to be in, and it's again going to elevate Las Vegas and elevate the experience for our visitors.
What's our solution to bring life to downtown? And to give you an example of what I mean, we saw with F1, Derek decided to do viewing parties. So they're like, look, we're not necessarily capturing the client that's gonna go down to the track and do all that, but we're gonna make an event, we're gonna activate the downtown event center, we'll activate Stadium Swim. What events are you looking for, to come to Fremont and ultimately help your business?
We started kicking off these, well, I'll back up. We have multiple venues that are all running different promotions every single night. And eventually we got to a point in the district is called the Fremont East Entertainment District, the feed district. And I remember being in a feed district meeting and realizing I have the majority vote at that point to shut the street down and do an event. We started just, and not in a nefarious way, I think everyone was on board with it as well. And now instead of focusing on each individual venues, now we're focused on turning the street itself into a venue. So we started booking entertainment that was free on the street and seeing the lift within the venue. So you would, and we just did one with this DJ called Griffin, and we have Diplo coming up that we're about to announce, and some major acts where you'll be playing on a stage on the street. It's a free event, and then everyone kind of sifts into the venues afterwards. Hopefully that's the model. So we're starting to do that monthly, starting next month.
Awesome. So I think we have maybe 5 minutes left. Tim, did you want to do some questions from the audience?
While you're looking for questions, I just want to point out that I lost the footwear battle on stage today.
I think Frank won that one. Any questions?
Roy Fritz, CBRE. We have a lot of success here in Las Vegas, especially in everything you guys are talking about here. Can you talk a little bit about some of the risks that you see? There's more casinos popping up around the country. There's more gaming areas, digitized gaming, seems on the mobile phones, all that stuff. And how are the casinos responding to that? And how much of a risk do we have here in Las Vegas with that stuff coming?
Well, generally, we don't see other locations or other options really as competition, and often they are the predecessor to someone aspiring and coming to Las Vegas. They're parts of loyalty programs. It's data that you get. You get to win a trip to Las Vegas. It's why JW Marriott just formed their partnership with MGM. They needed it to be a part of their loyalty program. And it's, Las Vegas is the pinnacle of all of that. And there's no place that provides the escape, the opportunity for celebration with the intensity that Las Vegas does. I mean, just in terms of what you can do in 2 or 3 days here that you really can't do in the same way elsewhere. So I think the only real threat there is the deployment of capital, where folks that are headquartered here, the MGMs, the Caesars, Boyds, whoever, may see opportunities for a better return on investment in a market that's got more opportunity and not necessarily as much competition. And maybe that leaves it open for someone else to make that investment here. But for the most part, I think the proliferation of gaming has been helpful for Las Vegas. Certainly on a sports scene, it has been for sure. And the opportunity for events to happen or people to participate and then ultimately land here has been beneficial as well.
I have a question regarding resort fees. Have the casinos all gotten together to try to come up with a solution for these resort fees that seem to be getting higher and higher?
So the question is around resort fees, and if the casinos gotten together to fix that problem. Start with, they can't get together because that's illegal. And so no, we're not seeing any problem at the top of the market. And I don't know how deep that goes, but it's probably the top third. There's probably some concern in the middle third And there's some action on the part of our customers, which is where the 7% drop in visitation is at the lower end of the financial spectrum. The properties that target that probably are going to start responding more frequently than they have. The overall Las Vegas numbers over the past 12 to 18 months have been somewhat masked because the top end of the market has done so well. It has gone up so much and has not really seen any resistance at that level. And so if you look at occupancy, for example, between the higher end properties in the resort, on the strip itself, they're still way into the 90s. And as you go down in the spectrum and off the strip, they have been in the 70s. And so we haven't seen it in the city's numbers until recently, but as the bottom of the market has suffered a little more, you'll start to see those numbers happen that affect the entire city. And I think you'll start to see, some of the properties that have 6, 8, 9 different hotel resorts manage them differently depending on who their target audience is.
You see the NBA do they want to be here, or is this a pipe dream for Las Vegas?
I think they want to be here, and I think their site is already probably picked, and it's not down there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's up to the owners ultimately. And of the 30 owners, you need 23 or 24 to approve the expansion. And their calculus is largely, we get X amount of money from our media deal, and we either split it 30 ways or we're going to split it 32 ways. And if we're going to split it 32 ways, the folks who buy a franchise are going to have to pay enough that does not dilute the amount of money that we make. And the cost of buying a franchise is going to be astronomical. The projection is that it's at least $6 billion for the right to own a team in Las Vegas. And that's what it's going to take in order to get, and it might take more than that, to get enough owners to vote for that expansion. Now, if that doesn't work, is there a chance that a team moves here? I think yes. I mean, Las Vegas is a very attractive market. We're not a big media market, but the global attraction that is Las Vegas, I think the NBA generally feels like that needs to be a part of the league. And it's a basketball city. We've got a great relationship with them. So I think one way or another, an NBA team gets here. We've got 3 different groups that want to bring an NBA team here. Bill Foley wants to buy that team and will write that check and wants to put them at T-Mobile Arena. And T-Mobile is going to have to be upgraded in order to make that happen, which is another significant investment. But I think everybody involved is willing to do that there. Fenway Sports and LeBron James, we're partnering with Silver Lake and OVG and potentially Live Nation and potentially TKO. And I think that's a real possibility. Now, Tim Leiweke, for those in this industry, got a little trouble here recently, and he was leading that effort, which changes the conversation there a little bit. And then Magic Johnson wants to bring a team to Las Vegas. And those are all very credible names, obviously. You can't get, into better basketball royalty right now than LeBron James and Magic Johnson. And Shaquille O'Neal is probably a part of one of those efforts. So I think it's a real possibility. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than we had originally anticipated.
Got a quick question for Ryan. When you see a change in your customer base, the younger generations maybe not drinking as much or taking edibles or being more health conscious, how do you absorb that in your business plan? What do you do to maneuver to either cater to them or to absorb that?
We've found that increasing the talent we will bring in better talent, and they are okay paying a higher admission charge. So we're usually getting it up front at the door, and they're drinking less on the inside, but we're booking bigger talent, which we never really wanted to get in that game. And when I say bigger talent, it's still not the bigger talent game that the Strip is playing. We're just booking better talent, and it's really staying on top of the zeitgeist of who's popular at the moment. Most of these guys are better than we normally need, but not good enough to play the big clubs on the Strip. And that cover charge goes from $10 or $15 to $30, and that's usually how we're getting, that extra $15 is the equivalent of maybe 2 more drinks for us.
Very good. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Let's give a big round of applause for Stupak, Steve Hill, Chris Volk, and Ryan Doherty. Great job, guys.